he will talk about. But mostly he is at home and he is a proponent of what is called, what is later came to be known as Avacheda Vada. And what is this Vada say? That the space-like consciousness, how did it become many? It did not become many. Just when you divide space with 4 walls and call it what? Room space. Is really room space? No, it's just space. Why are you bringing in room space? Because it's convenient. Otherwise we'll be cold if all these walls were not there. It's convenient. It's providing a little place to sit. Otherwise everybody would be seeing what we are doing. And this way we have some, we have privacy, we have protection from the elements. And then ego also feels good. This is all mine. Some people feel like that. And so that is also some kind of a thing. So it serves a function and a purpose. So for this function, the space is divided. Space is divided? You can divide space? No, as though. And especially if you are dealing with a box which has dividers which you can remove and put, very arbitrary. It's like when you store beads and small things, then the box comes and along with that some very convenient tongue-like dividers with some grooves. And if you want a big space, you remove that and occupy 2 spaces. Otherwise you make small dividers and have each one a single compartment to keep your little things in, because you want to separate. So you can separate, you can unite, all by the arbitrary so-called divider. And the power of this divider is so much that it can even divide space, as though. Cannot divide space. Space is indivisible, it's impartite, it cannot be partitioned. But the so-called divider is a mithya entity. Mithya entity means it is not really dividing space. It appears to be dividing space. Even in our everyday example, we can see that the pot space, this pot space and that pot space. So this pot space, small pot space, big pot space, fighting pot space, crack pot space, all the pot spaces, which so-called supposedly depend on their sizes, really speaking what? Pot is in space, space is not in pot, we can see that. So this is what is called Avacheda Vada. This all-pervasive, unafflicted, free, clear, Shuddha and knowing consciousness, this Sat-Chit, is as though takes on the shape and the form of what the conditioning agent is. While knowing, and we give the example of, is not really able to very successfully divide that very thing, whether it's water or air or space, you can't really put divisions on it. So if you cannot divide the 5 elements, what to talk of that which Atma, which created the 5 elements, how can that be divisible even? It is non-divisible. So this is called the theory of, as it were, conditioned consciousness. And another example that is given here is one of a crystal. You take a piece of crystal and then what happens? You put a black cloth behind it and then you say, this is a black crystal. Smoky quartz. No, look, pink. Oh, it became rose quartz? No, purple. Oh, is it amethyst now? Without being either amethyst or smoky quartz or an obsidian, it remains itself, but takes on these various hues because itself is free of all the hues. So if you put an orange cloth behind the crystal and then you remove the orange cloth, do you have to wash off the crystal to take off the color? No, not a single thing. From that orange color has affected the crystal at all. So this is the theory of, as it were, conditioned consciousness. As though conditioned consciousness. And this, this also has some problems. Because then we have to explain and we have to keep saying as though, as though conditioned. Because then the question will come, how come that which cannot be conditioned at all got conditioned? And then the other question comes, which the Pratibimbins will direct against us avachedins. And what is that question? Is that if to decondition this conditioned consciousness, the conditioning divider does it have to be broken? Does the pot have to be broken in order for the space to be freed? Does the walls have to come down so that this is no longer room space? To which we will reply, no, we are cognitively transcending. To which they will say, we don't believe anything that you are telling us. And so the 2000-year-old debate goes on. At least 2000 years old. And then they have some other, based upon that, then they go and get stuck. Because it all depends on avidya. The locus of this whole thing is, where does the avidya reside? This is where the schools go to. And the Pratibimbavada people will say that the avidya resides with the jiva. The jiva is the locus because the mirror, the unclean mirror, that is what it is. The foggy mirror is avidya. So the locus is the jiva. And then there is a subsect that says, no, the locus is actually Brahman because nothing is separate from Brahman. But we are not going to go there. This much is enough. This much discussion is enough to understand which vada we are pursuing right now. And both the vadas have a strong abiding presence in the tradition, and it is okay to elaborate any kind of a analogy using both these vadas. So which vada are we on right now? Pratibimba vada. Why? Because there is the face and the reflection. Simple. So if you have understood this much, then here in the verse number, the purpose of verse number 3, after the feel-good first 2 verses, that everything is all well and all the things are wonderful, there is only one is that never becomes is not. Even when you say is not, you are constrained to use the word is. Why? Because the absence of the thing is. The presence also is. Absence also is. And whenever you cognize the absence, you cannot, of something, you cannot leave the cognizer out. But what about when the cognizer is absent? What to do now? We just have to say the cognizer is never absent. Really, the cognizer is never absent? No. But what about when the cognizer goes to sleep? Because the cognizer has gone to sleep, the same cognizer wakes up and says, I was the witness, I was the cognizer of my own sleep. I slept so well, I did not know anything. Sukhamaham aswapsam na kinchid avedisham. I didn't know anything. So that means in sleep also, the cognizer is capable, after the sleep, of cognizing the sleep. Correct? So this is very, very, interesting. So the cognizer who never goes to sleep, there is a term in Sanskrit, alupta drik, the seer without eyelids. Yeah. And eyelids means, why eyelids? Because you can blink and a lot happens when you blink. Sometimes sleep comes, it becomes a long blink. And in the blink of an eye, so many things happen. The body has aged, by a millisecond, but it has aged. The Swami's body has aged, your body has aged, the things in the room are different. The lighting has, the sun has set little more. So you miss a lot in the blink. Correct? And so therefore what? So therefore, this Atma is seen as the one without a seer, without eyelids. So there is no chance of missing anything. The cognizer that is always present, always is. How? Nitya Upalabdhi, ever present, unchanging, Nishkampam. So having seen this, then the question arises, what happens at the individual level to this Atma? Why does it behave like an idiot? Why does the Atma behave like so many different constrained ways? If it is indeed like this, then if there is only one Atma, then everybody should be the same. Everybody should be permanently happy. All the time. Showing the 28. 28? Yeah. Why not 32? Because in this country they remove wisdom teeth. And that's why. So everybody should be grinning. From tooth to tooth they should be grinning. But that's not the case. Somebody is laughing, somebody is crying, somebody is jumping, somebody is, sleeping, somebody is sad, somebody is angry. What accounts for these differences? And that is what we just answered. Hastamalaka just answered that by the third verse. Mukhabhasakaha, the face in the mirror, darpane, in the mirror, which is seen, drishyamanaha, is not separate from the face itself. The reflected face is the same as the real face. We can use the word real here. The reflected face is the same as the real face. But then, because there is no other face other than that one face, there is no other thing other than that one face. Similarly, what is this sad, happy, sad, complaining, angry, upset, stressed, sleepy, creepy individual? What is this individual other than just that consciousness alone, reflected through the various states of the minds or the various buddhis? The here can be taken as buddhi, better to take it as antahkarana, the whole inner instrument, the mind. So basically the mind alone is the factor that distorts this reflection. First there is a universal distortion, and then there is a specific distortion based on the upadhis. What is the universal distortion? Is that which is limitless is seen as limited. That is the universal distortion. And then the specific distortion based on I am this tall, I am this big, I am man, I am woman, I am dog, I am cat, all these, wherever one places the I, the specific distortion to that upadhi comes. Nobody loves me. I mean, these are all universal, but still there is some specific flavor to that, like North Indian food and South Indian food, they have specific flavors. So like that. And so the chidabhasakaha, and so really speaking, in the same manner, tadvat jivaha api, this thing called the jiva, this thing called the individual with a specific body mind sense complex, this so-called jiva is what? Is just chit alone, is a reflection of the consciousness obtaining in the intellect, in the antahkarana. The reflection of that consciousness alone this jiva is. Oh, that's all? Yeah, that's all. Oh, then how come? Then if it's just that consciousness alone, then that means there is no bandha, no bondage. Yes, that's beautiful. That's what I've been trying to tell you for so many years. There is no bondage. Oh, there is no bondage? Are you sure? Yes, there is no bondage. Oh, that means there is no need to be liberated? Certainly not. Because if there is no bondage, why should there be, you cannot say free me from what? Nothing. There is no bondage. So if there is no bondage, is there need for liberation? No. Don't look so doubtful. It's not a trick question. If there is no bondage, there definitely needs to be no requirement for liberation. And yet here we sit, listening to the teaching. And what does the teaching do? Liberates. Ayayyo. So there is no bondage, correct? So the bondage is as real as the distortion itself, correct? You agree with that? So if the bondage is not there, distortion is not there, then the bondage which is based upon those distortions is also not there. And if the bondage is not there, then what is the need for the liberation? That is also not there. Need for liberation, nasti. Correct? And if the need for liberation not there, then the teachings of 5,000, 10,000 year old Upanishads become redundant. Already nobody is studying them. And imagine if this were the case, that really there is no bondage, no liberation needed, then the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and even this Hastamalaka Stotra will all become useless. And all the teachers will be out of a job. Because there is no teaching going on, no bondage, no liberation. Correct? But that's not the case, correct? But that's not the lived reality of most people. Everybody is going Trahimam, Pahimam, Adi Bhagavo Brahma. Oh, revered one, teach me about Brahman. Adi Bhagavah Brahma Vidyam Varishtham Sada Sadbhihi Sevyamanam Nigudham. Various Upanishads have various ways of asking for, the teaching. So still people are coming, still people are coming and attending the classes. Why? There must be some reason there. I haven't understood this Pratibimba theory very well. What should we do? I think we should go to the next verse. Yatha darpana bhava abhasahano mukham vidyate kalpanahinamekam
Mukham vidyate kalpanahinamekam
Mukham vidyate
Mukham vidyate
kalpanahinamekam
kalpanahinamekam
tathadhi viyoge
Tatadhi viyoge
nirabhasako yaha
nirabhasako yaha sanityopaladhi
swarupohamatma sanityopalabdhi swarupohamatma sanityopalabdhi swarupohamatma. So, yatha. Yatha means what? Just as. Darpana abhave. In the absence of the mirror. Abhasa hana. What happens when there is no mirror? What happens to the face? Reflected face? No face. Yeah, face off. Okay? No mirror, no face. Don't say no mirror, no face. Face is there, but the reflected face, nasti, is not there. Correct? Yeah. So when you take away the reflecting medium, what happens to the reflected face? Bye-bye. Gone. Bye-bye reflected face. So this is a very funny verse and a funny example. So we just have to, you don't have to read too much into it. It's very straightforward. So if you can make it complicated, but I suggest you don't. So, yatha darpana abhave, in the absence of the reflecting medium, the reflection ceases to be. Abhasaha, now, when the reflection ceases to be, then what happens? Tada, kimasti mukham vidyate kalpanahinam ekam. Then what remains when you take away the mirror? The reflected face goes away, correct? What remains?
The face.
Abba, thank you. The face. Okay. What remains is the face itself. Which face? The original face. The face remains. How does it remain? Free of the distortions that came along with the mirror. Kalpanahinam ekam mukham vidyate. One face alone remains, which is free of kalpana. Here means projections. Free of imaginary projection. There is a dot here, there is a spot here, there is what not here, all these things. So mukham vidyate, kalpanahinam ekam mukham vidyate. There is only one face which is free, which shines, free of all projections, that one had mistakenly attributed after what? Identifying with a reflection rather than the face. Okay? Did you understand so much? Okay. Next. Tatha, in the same manner. First we look at the example, drishtanta, then we go to what is called darshtanta, the exemplified. So what is exemplified here? Tatha dhi viyoge. In the absence of the buddhi, I'm just translating, okay? After the buddhi or the mind goes to a state of repose, after the mind quietens, that's a better translation. After the mind gains shama, dama, resolves, so to speak, then what happens? Nirabhasakaha yaha. The reflection, or rather the projections, also stop. What kind of projections? The self-annihilating projections, such as I am not worthy, I am an idiot, I am not useful, I am not needed, I am not good, I should do something about this, I should get ahead, I should show off, I should, try to bring somebody else down so I can look good. All these things also peter away when that mirroring agent is withdrawn. Correct? Yeah. This gives rise to a lot of problems. Did you understand the verse? Yes? Okay. So this, gives rise to a lot of problems. What is the problem? We immediately go to the yoga school. Yeah. Yoga school. And what is the yoga school say? Not the yoga that you practice in schools. That is also getting controversial enough. But the yoga school is all about stopping thinking. So are the Buddhas. The Buddhists are also about stop thinking. Certain sects of Buddhism, they don't want you to think. Why? If you think, you have problems. Therefore what? Stop thinking. Simple, stop thinking. And this is what the whole Vipassana meditation is all about. Keep watching the mind, keep watching the mind, keep watching the mind. And then, stop thoughts coming. And then when the cessation of thoughts, what does it lead to? It leads to a state called samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, which is supposedly very calm and, free of strife, free of anxiety, and a very nice state, this nirvikalpa samadhi. Whether it's a nice state for you or not, it's definitely a great state for the family members because you are not available to deal with. So they have little moksha from you for some time. So nirvikalpa samadhi means the cessation of the mind. When the mind gets to a place where thoughts subside. And then what happens? There is supposedly to take this Pratibimbavada into consideration, when the projection sees, what shines is that natural state of Satchit, natural Satchit Ananda nature alone shines. The seizing of the projection is incumbent, to the shining of one's own nature. This is not what he is saying, but this is where one can go after listening to this verse. So in that case, what happens? What is the focus? The focus is to not have thoughts at all. Correct? Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. That's the first Yoga Sutra. It is the first Yoga Sutra. Chitta vritti. Chitta here is not chit. Chittam, the antahkarana. Chitta vritti means the activities of the mind. Nirodha. Nirodha means what? The stopping of all mental activity is yoga, union with the whole, with the world. That's how you gain the oneness. Let's try it. I'm not going to have thoughts. I don't want to have thoughts. No more thoughts. No thought. No thought. No thought. No thought. Now the no thought has become a thought, correct? Yes or no? Or do you have to think about it? It has become a thought. In fact, the no thought has become an obsessive thought. Obsessive compulsive thoughts. And so therefore, the no thought, when it is achieved, it spontaneously happens sometime, which is okay. But that is not the goal of the spiritual study. If no thought was the goal, then that means that one will become permanently dull. That's what you'll just keep, near vegetative state. That's all it is. Hardly any, no thoughts, flat line mental activity. That is not what is called moksha. Moksha is to see that one is free in spite of the thoughts. That one is whole in spite of the fragmenting thoughts. That one is unbound even in spite of the fact that all these thoughts seem to bind me into certain situations and feelings and mental conditions. So it is to cognitively transcend the thought and to see that the thinker, the truth of this I, is that which morphs into the thinker and morphs into the thought and the process of thinking while being neither. So therefore, the obsession to stop the thoughts, you move from that. You move from that to witnessing the thoughts, and that's not the ultimate goal in the meditation or in the teaching. It's just preparing the mind to not hang on quite so tightly to each and every mental frame that is arising. Because otherwise what happens? How long can you say thoughtless? That's a thoughtless question, okay? Yeah. How long can you stay thoughtless? 1 hour? Half an hour? Then you will say, I had moksha for 1 hour. You will say that. And if no thoughts are there, what will come is sleep. Most of the time that's what happens. And so then what's the difference between nirvikalpa samadhi and sleep? In the latter, there are sounds. That's all there is. There is no snoring in nirvikalpa samadhi. That's all we can say. And so is that what Hastamalaka is saying? That you have to stop having thoughts, because the thoughts are the bane of your existence, because they are the ones, your internal thought life is what is stopping this reflection. So therefore withdraw the mind and then you will shine like the original face in the earlier example. No. So it's the question of withdrawing the mind. Here is not to be taken literally. It's a figure of speech. And that is going to be described in the next verse very shortly. It's a figure of speech for saying, attend to this reflecting medium, attend to its hygiene, its cleanliness, and see what this kind of mind is and what kinds of thoughts are projecting in it, and bring your thought life to as close to the Satchidananda as possible, really, through various practices. What are the practices? Karma yoga, bhakti, karma, all these things. Karma yoga includes bhakti. Through meditation, through chitta shuddhi, chitta naishchalyam, all these things, you bring it to a certain level of mimicking what is Satchidananda. And at the same time you are studying this teaching, and the teaching itself is sculpting the receptacle. Yeah. The teaching itself sculpts the receptacle so that the truth of oneself is seen differently. The vision is internalized differently. And so this is what he is trying to say. He is not saying that the whole mind should come to a standstill. And if you take it that way, then we are into all kinds of problems, because then moksha becomes temporary. Then we have a situation called anirmoksha prasangaha, where the moksha becomes an impossibility. Liberation becomes an impossibility because of what? Because of the fact that it is temporary. So this verse answers the question, if the liberation, if there is no bondage, then why are we pursuing the teaching? Because the various minds in which this consciousness, as it were, is reflected, leads one to identifying with the reflection. And that really is the birthday of the jiva, when one identifies completely with the reflection. That's when you have to sing happy birthday and blow the candle out. Why? Because that is really the birth of the jiva. The birth of this individual, the one in many thoughts, in many hearts, in many antahkaranas, is immediately correlated. This individuation is correlated with the identification with the reflection, the reflecting medium, which is one's own body, mind, sense complex, rather than the consciousness. So the I, which was placed in consciousness, has been misplaced in this severely conditioned, limited, as it were, body, mind, sense complex. So one thinks, I am this tall, I am this big, I am this powerful, I am disempowered, I am an idiot. This is what the whole problem is. So therefore, even though the third verse, what did it say? It says that the jiva is just a reflection. So that means the jiva is not real. And so that means the bondage is not real. That means the liberation is also not real, is not needed. In the next one, when we talked about how, the powerful, how powerful the effect or the force of this reflective medium. When we see that, we need the teachings. Because even though it is mithya api san, even though it is mithya, it shines as sat, so to speak. It casts a powerful pall over the life, and then one starts to feel incomplete and less than whole. And therefore what? It needs to be attended to cognitively. We have an expression, yakshanurupo balihi. What does it mean? Balihi means offering. Offering or sacrifice, bali. Yaksha means the deity, a particular celestial deity in this case. Yaksha anurupaha bali. Balihi means you see the size of the deity, and then you decide how much food to offer. Yakshanurupo balihi. Similarly, if some kind of a wrestler comes to your house for lunch and you give him 2 peanuts, that's not going to be enough for even one tooth for this person, this huge 7-foot fellow. So therefore, the offering is in keeping with the size of the deity. This is something that's followed in our temple also. You go to Brihadishvara temple in Tanjavur, huge Shivalinga. And then if you offer it a few grains of rice, it doesn't work. So you have to offer it according to the size. Okay? So here also, for the mithya bondage, you need mithya teaching, right? Same level. Same level. Oh, the teaching is mithya? Yeah. Why didn't you tell us before? I tried. Teaching is mithya. But where does it say that? It says that everywhere. When Shaunaka goes to, the Angiras, the teacher, and Angiras says there are 2 kinds of knowledges to be known. The relative and the absolute. Oh, what is relative knowledge? And he says, Rig Veda. What? Rig Veda? That is relative? Yes. Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, Shiksha, Chandas, Vyakaranam, which is next, and Kalpa. All this, everything is, is relative. It's not the absolute. Shaunaka is confused. Then what is the absolute? Para ka? What is para? What is the absolute? What is the ultimate? Yaya buddhi vritya, we have to understand, aksharam adhigamyate. So what is not mithya in this teaching? That thing that happens in the course of the teaching, through which one understands that I am not all this and I am actually the whole. That thought frame, that mental frame called the vritti. What kind of vritti? Akhandakara vritti. That which is produced by the operation of the pramana, the means of knowledge, which is the teaching. So the teaching is a means of knowledge, not to establish the Atma, because the Atma is self-evident, self-established, self-effulgent, but to remove the distortions associated with it. So in the course of the teaching, not the words that come out of the teacher's mouth, but the effect they have in your psyche, in your antahkarana, that alone is para. Oh, if that is para, but then that vritti goes away, correct? You said vritti is kshanika. Kshanika means momentary. How long does a thought last? By the time so many thoughts have come and gone. Thought is, seconds. It lasts for a second. So then this, what is para, what is absolute and ultimate only lasts for 1 second? Ayyo, we are in trouble now. No, it does not last for 1 second. It is you who is without a second. It's you. So therefore, when the teacher is, the words of the teacher create a vritti in you that dismisses and knocks off the status of the knower, which is limited, or the status of the object, or the status of anything, which knocks off all divisions, then the vritti itself is knocked off by the next vritti, but that's okay because it has done its job. Like the suffix called quip. There is a suffix called quip. The word Upanishad has a suffix called quip. And what does this quip do? It comes, it goes away, but it changes the meaning of the word so that the Upanishad becomes both the subject matter of the book and also what it does, its function. It's like an agent noun that does its work quietly. So the Upanishad is the agent of enlightenment, of dismissing all the false mithya notions about the self. So you have so many words. Thinker, the agent of thinking, correct? And then what? Doer, seer, waker, sleeper, dreamer. It's that ER, correct? And then there are certain things. Operator. And then there are some other words. Cook. One who cooks is? Cooker? That which cooks is a cooker. Yes, you can say pressure cooker. But not one who cooks is not a cooker. What is the one who cooks? Cook. What happens to the ER? Silently it has gone away. It has done its job. It has quipped its way out. It has gone away. And so similarly here, that thought frame, which is the mind-altering thought frame. Oh my God, I'm none of these things. Oh, and I got it. I saw it. I can see this. And the thought frame may go away, but it leaves behind that which is already you, which is already self-effulgent, which does not need to be established by a thought. Please see that. Very beautiful. And so that alone is para. Everything else is relative. So mithya ignorance, mithya teaching, mithya student, mithya tears, save me, help me, I can't go on with this life. 7 marriages and 5, jobs later, I'm coming to you. Help, oh Guru. And the mithya Guru says, don't worry. I show you the way. Asti upayah, there is a way out of this. And there is a way to, swim out of this ocean of samsara. We are going to begin swimming lessons tomorrow. This Mithya Guru is talking. What kind of Mithya lessons? Mithya swimming lessons. Yeah, Mithya swimming lessons. In the Mithya pool of samsara. I'll teach you how to. Samsara sagarasya tarane asti upayah. Yenaiva yata yatato asya param. Just like all the other travelers have, crossed this over. Tameva margam tava nirdishami. That same road by which all the previous exalted travelers like you who are in a stuck situation have travelled and come out of, I will show you that road. Mithya road. Correct? And the Mithya student feels very happy. Oh, the first class was wonderful. Correct? And then what? This is all Mithya. Yakshanurupo balihi. Because this is exactly like saying, at that level, the diamond alone cuts the diamond, And you need one thorn to take out the other thorn. With the help of one thorn, you take out the other thorn. So too, Mithya alone speaks to one Mithya, speaks to another Mithya. They become the greatest of friends. One Mithya spirits away the other Mithya. And then that's why at the end of every Upanishad, every shloka, then you say, what Guru, what Shishya, I am that. Hey Guru, you are that also. And it's all well, it's all fine. That all there is one I have understood. There is no more confusion because I know that, that ironically, the duality is removed by creating a further duality, that of the Guru Shishya duality you create. You purposely create until which time it is not, it serves its purpose. You purposely create that duality. So you Guru Shishya duality you create, and then, that is the final, throes of duality. That's the ultimate one. And that is also spirited away. And so yes, so the teaching is needed. Why? because the identification with the reflecting medium, with the upadhi is complete, and so the mirror is fogged down and the jiva is bogged down by various conclusions, notions, oceans of notions, which make life extremely difficult. But then how does one gain the teaching? How do you come out of this? All this is okay, I think I have understood. Like I told you, go to the next verse. Manaschakshuradhirviyukta swayam yaha. Manaschakshuradhirviyukta swayam yaha. Manaschakshuradhirmanaschakshuradhihi. Manaschakshuradhirmanaschakshuradhihi. Manaschakshuradhiragamya swarupaha. Manaschakshuradhiragamya swarupaha. Sanityopalabdhi swarupohamatma. Okay. So then, when does the reality shine without projections? The reality shines without projections when the reality is understood, devoid of the projections. So when does it get devoid of the projections? When the teaching hits the mark, correct? And what does it mean the teaching has hit the mark? The teaching has to knock off the knower, the status of the one who knows. Oh, but that doesn't sound very comfortable. It's not supposed to. It's like the anesthesia before surgery. This we have talked about many times. The patient has to be anesthetized. Why? Patient has to be etherized because the doctor doesn't want the patient chatting during the operation. The operation happens silently because the doctor knows what to do. You can't have the patient saying, "Are you cutting in the right place? You're using size number 14 knife. Maybe I think you should use 16, too big. How are you sure that the tumor is there and not somewhere else?" All this is not needed because the patient has come to the doctor for help and has surrendered to the doctor and says, "I don't know how else to overcome this. You need surgery," says the doctor. "Okay, I need surgery." So then before the surgery, what happens? Anesthesia knocks off the entity completely, knocks off the entity. And then the entity is brought back, so to speak, after the surgical procedure has been completed. Take a cataract operation, same thing. So the anesthesia is given, whether it's local or global doesn't matter, but some anesthesia is given. And then after that the patient is removed to a resting place and then comes out of this medically induced sleep called anesthesia. So here also the guru's job, the teacher's job is to knock off the notions the associated with the person, which is not as easy as it sounds. And why? Because the notions have got stuck. They are habitual notions. Some are familial notions. Everybody in my family called me an idiot, so I started to believe it, And some are ancestral notions. Some are, past life notions. They are also there. Some predilections and tendencies. There are so many notions. It just cannot be, you cannot sort of take each notion and try to dismiss it. Because if you dismiss each notion, then you will be here all day and then the teaching cannot be universal, it will become so particular. And also if you dismiss one notion, the other one will rear its head. So therefore what do you dismiss? You dismiss the holder of the notions. And the notions scatter away, correct? It's like all these cockroaches hiding under the couch. And then what do? You remove the couch. You lift the couch up and put it somewhere else. Then what happens to the cockroaches? Oh, wow, there's no shelter. There's no more the shelter for me to just lurk under this thing. So I have to find a new place. I have to just go. I have to scurry away. Don't worry about finding the new place. Scurry away. Yeah. Even in the first teaching, the cockroaches of wrong projection find a new place to sit. And that's why there is another Upanishad. And that dislodges the cockroach-like notions somewhere else. And why do I liken the wrong notions about oneself to cockroaches? Because they have a staying power. Even the Hiroshima could not destroy them. The atom bomb, after that what they found were cockroaches. They have staying power. And they are very ancient, just like these notions. And they thrive in the dark, in the unenlightened mind. It's a wonderful place, a breeding ground for these cockroaches. And they are very annoying. Nobody likes them, nobody wants them. They are unhygienic. They are horrible. They bring diseases. Bhavaroga, samsara disease. They bring these notions. So therefore the analogy is very apt. And so the mind which is couching these notions, you lift it up to Brahman, you say this, you are this Brahman. Then what happens to the cockroaches? All these notions, they just scurry away. So here, yatha dhi viyoge, in the previous verse, it doesn't mean that the mind is put to rest. The mind is enlightened. The ego is lightened of the burden of carrying these notions. And the cockroach-like wrong notions attached to the self scurry away without a hiding place. And so therefore, that is how the teaching proceeds. And this is what is required to go further into this knowledge, is to assimilate this teaching so that one understands this properly, and then one can look into what all the other things after the knowledge has been gained. If there are certain questions or doubts, etc., how to remove them, that will also be addressed not in this verse but in the next one. But this one we'll just briefly look at. Manaha chakshuhu adihi adehe viyuktaha. That consciousness which is ever present, which is devoid of the mind, doesn't have the Atma, doesn't have eyes, Atma doesn't have mind. It is just presence. It is a sentient presence which at once obtains as the I. And then manaschakshurader manaschakshuradihi, that which is in fact the eye of the eye, the mind of the mind, the senses of the senses, that which allows the senses to operate without having any sense itself. And then manaschakshuradehe agamya swarupaha, that which is not ever objectified by the senses, that Atma, that I alone am. This we will see next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate
Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.